Okay, today we're gonna be watching some Reggie video. uh, this is about, let me see. Okay, I use infinite rats to kill God. Let's go. Let's see how good this is.
But is that enough to withstand 500,000 Tyrannid monsters,
Kill.
2,000 Chaos Warriors, and whatever the hell this thing
Oh,
is?
oh goodness. Okay. That looks like the freaking um what you call it? Thing from Overlord. What Nurissa or something? Not Rissa or I've got the damn thing called um the damn torture monster that's in charge of intelligence in Overlord. But it looks like that. Some people would look at her and say, "Oh, I would definitely want that," but I can't see it. I can't. Ugh.
That is the question we will answer in today's video, because we'll be playing a Warhammer-themed deathmatch in Conquest of Elysium 5.
Okay.
Through the acquisition of several dubiously balanced mods,
Whoa.
we've carefully constructed 4 different teams of Warhammer.
Okay, hold up. Joe Rogan, Asman, Alex Jones. I unfortunately don't know who this man is. I unfortunately don't know.
Factions, which will compete to stomp our head in and
No,
claim
but you
ownership
jumped.
over this planet. But before we go any further, I have to tell you something.
Okay.
I live in the not-so-good part of town.
Oh man, we'll work for Skooma. And lovely Lily meme. Don't that's basically the same damn meme that our lovely girl used, and people got crazy over. Oh Lord have mercy, just the craziness of it all.
And every Sunday, I have witnessed a schizophrenic man throw a boulder through the window of a nearby Toyota dealership.
They
He's
deserve
been
it.
doing it for months, and the police either aren't willing or aren't able to stop him.
He's too
His
good.
dedication
He's
to
too
his
good.
craft fascinates me, and
He's
in
too
many
good.
ways, I consider him to be my muse. The uninitiated among us may ask, why is he trying to kill the receptionist with a piece of concrete at 9:30
Cheating on him.
a.m.?
She
But I
cheated.
already know the answer. This man is profoundly upset because he's not able to play the newest update for Zenless Zone Zero. ZZZ is
Oh,
a
look at them
free-to-play
hips.
urban fantasy
Them
action
legs, them
RPG,
thighs.
and they've just added tons of content to the game, such as new playable character Remiel. She's a powerful angel
Oh
who
yes.
drains the color from the world around her and uses it to
It
defeat her
absor
enemies. Personally, I'm
absorbs
a
all
huge
the
fan.
color
In fact,
and
I
gives
read
it to
her
herself.
entire Wikipedia.
And them
Now let me
and them
ask you,
thighs.
are you a fan of welfare? Because Zenless Zone Zero is about to deploy the strongest welfare package in history. We're talking one free S-tier agent, 1 W engine, 20 character pulls, 1600 polychrome, and most importantly, we're doing a swimsuit episode.
Oh,
If that
yes.
doesn't turn your life around, I don't know what will. In addition to that, you can also enjoy
Oh, the
all of the
TV.
other aspects of the game, such as a diverse roster of characters, fascinating
Okay.
world design paired with animated storytelling, and a fast-paced kinetic combat system which will make you loudly exclaim such exciting things as, wow. Holy God, I've just killed a man. And of course, I'm
The
playing it
plot.
for the story.
Yes, the
So what
story.
are you waiting for?
The story.
Use the
That's
link
all-
below to
story.
download Zenless
Yo,
Zone
we're not
Zero
playing
for
for anything
free
else. The
today
story.
on
Clearly the
PC,
story.
console, or mobile. And you can redeem the code on screen to receive 60 polychrome and 6,600
I should I should think about playing it, quite frank, but I don't know. I don't know. Yeah,
66 Denny.
I
Thank you,
mean,
Zenless.
okay. I mean, if I would play it, I mean, I would probably have to pay online. That's like 100 what something dollars. I think what for a year or something like that. Or I think it's higher. I can't remember. I could swore it was higher last time I checked. I think it's like 160 or something. It's a lot. It's fucking a lot. But like, yeah, shit.
Zone Zero, now back to the video. Here we are in the pre-game lobby. I quickly select a Skaven faction, which is just barely legally distinct enough to prevent Games
Definitely
Workshop
not
from
men.
sodomizing us. And then I give myself a traditional rat man name. Across from us sits
So,
the
Citadel?
Imperium of Man,
Citadel?
represented by the Imperial Guard and Adeptus Mechanicus.
Okay.
The Undead Coalition, led by the Tomb Kings and Vampire Princes. The
Okay.
Chaos forces comprising both Nurgle and Khorne, and finally the Tyranid swarm. If we're lucky, most of these people will kill each other long before we ever meet them. Otherwise, it's going to be a long night at the office. So let's begin. Like any good Zero to Hero story, ours starts with Glup Shitto spawning in a hole in the ground. Our most immediate neighbors are a society of magical worms and a gang of Cro-Magnon men patrolling the dirt streets. To a normal faction, a subterranean dirt kingdom might not sound terribly appealing, but to us, this is a great start, because our entire faction is based around extracting and processing natural resources. So we'll begin by using our waste plow to dredge these mines for every mineral available, leaving nothing behind but fields of ash. However, this process is kind of a one-time deal, and since our cave has the approximate square footage of a New York apartment, it's time for us to go topside and stake our claim to the outside world. I use our second commander Riz to start exploring the surface and conquering poorly defended villages. This clears the way for our waste plows, and we begin terraforming the local ecosystem into a steaming pile of shit. But why do we do this? Are we fundamentally bad people? Do we openly despise the outside world? And is our rebellion against Mother Nature motivated in part by our hatred of God himself? The answer is a categorical yes, but also we do it because it gives us a shit ton of iron, which we can sell for gold, or more importantly, use to build factories, which is the very first thing I did. Tucked away in our subterranean hideout, safe from the gaze of occupational health and safety, we have created our first factory. Here, we will push the limits of industrialism, productivity, and on-site fatalities in order to produce some of the
best weapons, I'm sure. The best weapons ever.
Gem Mint.
Please see important safety information and indication at 340.
The most heinous technology imaginable. Each factory we build will passively construct automaton soldiers to join our army. The limits of industry we build will passively construct on-site fatalities in order to produce some of the most heinous technology.
I'm thinking something completely different, right? I'm thinking something completely different right now. I mean, I feel disgusted for even thinking it, but it does not surprise me, because, I mean, it doesn't shock me, because, quite frankly, some people would do exactly what I'm thinking. And as disgusting as it is, there are some people that would do exactly that. Exactly what I'm thinking.
Technology imaginable. Each factory we build will passively construct automaton soldiers to join our armies, and occasionally they will also complete production on a complex war.
It sounds like it sounds like the way that the way he's talking. It sounds like he's using like Necros. It's like a machine factor. It's like a machine faction. The machine faction that that's all robots and stuff like that. I think.
Machine. Right now, we've just got one factory, but soon this entire cave will be a monument to unpaid overtime. We just need more resources. Using Riz, we follow the coastline south, eventually arriving and conquering the desert city of Morn, which is our first substantial source of gold. Now, unlike a drug addict, we no longer have to rely on selling scrap metal to afford our next hit of crack cocaine. In other good news, we received a notification telling us that our factory has finished construction on its first war machine, a Gata blimp. If your understanding of that word is a blimp with Gatling guns, then much like me, you have the brain of a rat, and you are welcome in my subterranean lair anytime. This bad boy puts out 9 attacks every round, and in the event of its death, it triggers a self-destruct protocol that mostly kills your own units. Very nice. The acquisition of the Gata blimp expedited our conquest progress
That's pretty
significantly.
powerful.
And as we killed and plowed our way across the map, we created more factories,
That's
which
pretty
in
powerful.
turn produced more war machines, most notably the Total Resource Harvester. This creaking, smoking mountain of metal is the pinnacle of military-industrial sadism.
That's cool.
An entire factory mobilized on a set of tank treads the size of a 4-lane highway. This monstrosity is capable of harvesting resources similarly to our waste plows, but it can also process biomatter, meaning that we can harvest wooded areas to gain 15 iron each, or we could even consume the entire population of a village for 55. But I didn't do either of those. Instead, the first thing we processed was the stupid fucking cavemen who have been blocking the entrance to our base for the past 15 turns. I gotta say, watching a group of Unga Bunga cavemen have their flesh harvested and assimilated by a skyscraper-sized robot is truly one of life's simple pleasures. Now we can resume our work in peace. Expanding westward, we come into contact with our first major enemy, the Tyranids. At first glance, you might expect us to be sympathetic to these creatures. After all, we're both swarm factions focused on the violent assimilation of biomass, but I...
Oh god. I almost just threw up. Oh god, what was that? Oh. Okay, let's...
All, we're both swarm factions focused on the violent assimilation of biomass.
Oh, okay, well, that's enough. Okay.
But I could never respect a bug, because they're the pencil pushers of the 40k setting. Yeah, you're killing everyone, but where's the showmanship? The homunculi of the dark...
I saw that meme. Hold up. What is that? Was it? This meme before. If you know, you know, and quite frank, if you don't know, keep it that way. Quite frank, really keep it that way. If you don't know, you don't want to know. You really don't want to know. So, trust me, don't even look it up. Do not. Really, if anything at all, I'm telling you, don't. Don't. Because I saw it one time, I looked it up. I was like, oh, this is nothing bad. Then I saw it, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, now I fucking know. And I'm telling you, don't look it up.
The homunculi of the Dark Eldar turn their enemies into living furniture. The orcs use teleportation technology to teleport inside your body and rip you open like an overstuffed turkey. And the Imperium of Man sacrifices like 1,000 neurodivergent people every day to a dead guy in a chair. In the face of all of that, I find the Tyranids to be painfully mid, and I sentence them to death. The only problem with all of that is, I checked the score graph, and the Tyranids are like 3 times more powerful than us. But don't worry, we just got a very well-timed random event, because a brave hero has appeared to join our fight against the killer bugs. Regrettably, he was eaten alive by a giant spider on the very next turn. Thanks for trying, pal, but we've got it from here. You see, the natural geography of our starting position makes it highly defensible. All we had to do was take these mine layers and use them to stuff this choke point full of at least 50 high-explosive landmines. That takes care of our most immediate concern. Next, the Capitolium. This 4-tile megacity is the most resource-dense area on the entire map, and if we let the Tyranids capture it, we are almost certainly doomed. But how can we stop them? I have exactly one idea. I know for a fact that the Tyranids did not spawn on this side of the map. In fact, they're all the way over here, meaning that the only way they could get here this quickly is if they teleported. All we need to do is find the teleporter, destroy it, and then we can whittle down their remaining armies with our endless supply of slave labor. After some scouting, we identified the problem. We are being betrayed by the very environment itself. Because these ancient forests are conduits of magical energy, and they allow armies to teleport to them through the use of a fairy circle, such as the fairy circle right outside the Tyranid base. 99% chance this is how the bugs are getting over here. Most factions wouldn't be able to stop this, but if there's one thing we're good at, it's destroying the environment. So I had our resource harvesters elegantly turn the forest into a parking lot. With that taken care of, we have effectively severed the Tyranid supply lines. Now we just have to deal with their local forces. Fortunately, they did half the work for us when they decided to charge headfirst into one of our minefields. This resulted in the death of several of our mine layers, but more importantly, it debilitated one of the main Tyranid swarms, which was a great start. Now, the benefit of landmines is that they're a convenient way to kill your enemies. The downside is that they're stationary, so you just have to hope that the enemy walks onto the correct tile. But what if we could figure out how to bring the landmines to them? Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you to the Doomsday Conscript. It's literally just a rat holding an atomic bomb. He's got one ability, and it kills everyone, starting with himself. So with the brown Tyranid force in shambles, I decided to send this Doomsday Conscript after the pink swarm for a decisive victory. To my surprise, the Tyranids took the bait and attacked the suicide rat. However, rather embarrassingly, they killed him before he could explode. On my second attempt, I gave our rat a small army of expendable losers to distract the enemy long enough for him to detonate his bomb. God bless Skaven military doctrine. With the two main Tyranid swarms defeated, it was just a matter of throwing an endless supply of rats at the remaining bugs and destroying their spawning pools.
I'm curious though. I'm curious. If you were to send like maybe like 2 of them suicide bombers, rats, would I mean that would probably like screw up, probably like hold up. First, that would probably screw up your PC, because quite frankly, that's a lot of damage and pixels and shit like that, all in one, back to back, but,
until we had fully expunged them from our territory. This means we can now set our sights on something far more important, the Capitolium. Sieging the Capitolium can be surprisingly difficult, especially if they've got high-level casters. So we spent about 15 turns carefully crafting the perfect siege army. We started by conscripting a bunch of worthless nobodies to fill out our front line. Then for the back line, we've got Warplock Jezzails. Editor, 10 times zoom and digitally enhance the image. Ah yes, much better. These are basically just high-powered snipers. Whatever they shoot dies, and they do not miss. Just for good measure, I also tossed in a few Tox launchers, which are siege weapons that launch barrels of acid at our enemies. I cannot fathom a more dignified death than being shot 25 times by snipers while melting in a pool of acid. So let's get to it. Our first target is the most holy of places, the Temple District. We start the siege by quickly liquefying 90% of the clergy and shooting the rest. Moving on to the Trade District, we use our underminers to tunnel underground and re-emerge on the other side of the enemy walls, before drilling them in the face and exploding. Next was the Slums, which was defended by like 4 people, so you can guess how that went. And then finally, we attacked the Citadel, where the Emperor himself was waiting for us. As the siege began, I realized he has an item that gives him acid resistance, so our Tox cannons can't hurt him. He must have felt pretty smart about that, until our blimp shot him in the face with a Gatling gun. After that, we had a tasteful back and forth with the enemy Pyromancer, before eventually capturing the final piece of the Capitolium. Much like Thanos gathering his final Infinity Stone, we are now ready to completely ruin the universe. But first, we need to coronate Glup Shido as the new ruler of this world. So we move him to the Citadel and proceed to buy the support of the Industrial Council. This transforms Glup from a 3'7" incel rat into a 6'9" technocrat. Equipped with a variety of new weapons and new rituals, we're finally ready to make this planet so much shittier. First things first, the capital is insufficient in its current form. Much like Toronto, it must grow from one city into a collection of cities, each one worse than the last, until eventually the rampant drug crisis of our original city pales in comparison to the army of shambling fentanyl ghouls inhabiting our satellite cities. To accomplish this, we use Glup Shido to construct several sweatshops and conscription offices in each tile of the capital. Then on the outskirts, we erect a ring of child labor factories to fortify our position. Each factory is outfitted with several machine gun turrets to prevent entry or escape. Then, to top it all off, we have a dozen mine layers surround all of that with 50 landmines on each tile.
Oh my god.
Watch what eggs do to your cat's body.
Wet food or dry food? It's the question I've heard from cat parents for more than 50 years, and the real answer almost always catches them off guard.
I hope the civil engineers.
Oh my god. Okay. Okay. So basically, you can sanction off like a place or whatever if you want to. Like that's pretty cool.
Out there are taking notes because this is the pinnacle of urban planning.
Yeah.
We also take this opportunity to accelerate our global enshittification of the planet, aggressively deploying resource harvesters to flatten the mountain ranges and process every tree on the map. The animals and tribesmen inhabiting these areas did attempt to fight back, but I can't imagine why. Because when you and 3 of your illiterate friends decide to ambush my harvester, I can't help but wonder what you thought was going to happen prior to being sucked into our industrial wood chipper and dying on the spot. Since we're on the topic of bad ideas, if you're going to attack someone with not 1 but 2 nuclear bombs, you better be willing to finish the job, or else they're just going to come back weirder and more deranged than before. Which is why we're now going to focus all of our military efforts on finishing off the Tyrannid faction. Presently, we've got a military advantage over them, but the Imperial Guard is slowly gaining on us. So let's get this over with quickly. I take our siege army west along the coast toward the main Tyrannid hive. The only thing standing in our way is the Tomb Kings and Vampire Princes. Preliminary scouting has indicated that they are not open to diplomacy. That's unfortunate, because these factions can get absolutely disgusting in the late game with undead dragons. So it's imperative that we stomp them out while we have the chance. Locating their main city wasn't difficult, but taking it was another story. The siege began with 2 massive explosions ripping through our front lines. At first, I thought the enemies had some kind of grenade launcher, but upon reviewing the footage, I realized it was just our shitty-ass war machines exploding on contact with the first enemy projectile. Remind me to kill the engineering team when we get back to the base. Despite these setbacks, we did manage to seize the city, which forced the vampire faction to subsist on whatever scraps of real estate they could eke out of the ever-expanding ash fields. Since I am a generous man, I was content to let them live out their days in abject poverty. But after about 6 turns, we received a notification explaining that they died of homelessness. That works too. On to the Tomb Kings. I struggle to properly express the power disparity between us and the Tomb Kings. The analogy coughing baby versus hydrogen bomb doesn't even come close. Quite literally, the entire war was over in 23 seconds, because we walked up to their base, blasted them with a few siege weapons, and they rolled over and died, leading to one of the most humbling defeat screens of all time. What a way to go. Riding off the high of eliminating 2 factions back to back, I decide to just go ahead and attack the Black Pyramid of Nagash. In hindsight, we probably should have checked the defenses first, because these guys started absolutely annihilating us. I'm talking 60% casualties in the first 10 seconds. At this point, I'm pissing. I'm crying, and I'm praying to God that we survive. Thankfully, he listens, and Glup Shido survives by shotgunning a woman in the face twice at point-blank range. Truly, God is good. While all of this was going on, we made contact with another enemy, the Imperial Guard. They've been sabotaging our waste plows and harassing some of our smaller settlements while we've been struggling to contain the Tyrannid menace. This is the equivalent of someone smacking you on the back of the head while you're trying to defuse a bomb. Very annoying, but we can kill them later. The death of 99% of Glup's army slowed down our campaign. However, backup commander Riz pressed forward, stalking the Tyranid swarm across the map until eventually catching it off guard. For once, we're outnumbered, and we had to trade our entire front line just to get rid of their Von Ryan's Leapers. But after that, it was just a shooting gallery, and thankfully we were able to kill their swarm faster than it was able to close the distance on us. This single victory set Tyranid military power back about 50 turns. Pushing deeper into bug territory, we begin looking for their spawning pools to end this once and for all. However, a dense fog enveloped the entire map, which obscured every tile such that you have no idea what you're about to step into. This resulted in one of our scouting armies finding the last two factions when it accidentally wandered into an entire army of Khorne Berserkers and Chaos Plague Marines. Fortunately, Nurgle's forces follow the approximate hygiene routine of a Discord moderator, and simply being within 10 feet of them caused the Khorne units to contract AIDS and die, which made it pretty easy for us to mop up the leftovers. Regardless, add them to the ever-expanding list of people we need to kill.
That's the interest rate you get from your
stupid.
bank? You deserve to earn more money on your money.
But I mean, I'm surprised,
with SoFi,
I guess Faction's mixing.
By the time we find the Tyranid hive, Glup Shido has rebuilt his army, and we use it to sentence 200 bugs to death by firing squad. With this battle, we finally finished off one of the Tyranid players, and a few turns later, we get the other one too. That's 4 players down in total, leaving us just the Imperial Guard, Adeptus Mechanicus, Khorne, and Nurgle. In my testing, Nurgle specifically was incredibly broken. Here's a graph of another campaign where I tried my hardest just to keep up with him. It wasn't even close. Fortunately, both he and Khorne spawned in the north, which means that at least once a year they lose 50% of their military to mass drownings, because the AI isn't smart enough to predict when ice tiles are going to melt. That alone is probably the only thing standing between us and an alternate timeline, where a partially decomposed obese man is giving us chlamydia. While Nurgle isn't having much military success, they have managed to brew up a zombie apocalypse. I noticed a few villages in the north have been infected with Nurgle's pox, a disease which turns villagers into zombies and has them travel to other villages to spread the infection. This is a problem, but it's currently pretty far away and we have a much more immediate threat at hand. The Imperium of Man. While we were busy bug hunting, the Imperial Guard seized a sizable chunk of the map, and now their economy rivals our own. This is an issue since the Guard is the only faction alive that can compete with us in terms of raw firepower, because each one of their units is equipped with a las gun. In the 40k setting, the las gun is openly derided as a high-powered flashlight. But the creator of this mod said, fuck that shit, what if it could rip a horse in half? Now each one of these guns does between 1 and 4 damage, and fires 4 times every round for a maximum of 12 damage per unit. That's pretty good. Now scale that up for 100 units, and we're talking 1200 damage per round. Absolutely mental. On top of that, they've got a beefy front line of lobotomized mutants, and occasionally a Chimera transport vehicle with 12 fucking multi-lasers. On the other hand, we have rat. A lot of rat. And so the question becomes, do they have more bullets than we have rats? Honestly, I don't know, but I think it's time for us to find out. We start by taking Glup Shido back to the Capitolium. Once we arrive at our smog-filled toxic waste dump of a home, I take a deep breath, and as I feel the millions of microplastics gently deposit themselves in my lungs, I know we're finally ready. We use 1,000 gold and 1,000 iron to have Glup Shido perform his most powerful ritual. By planting this giant flag in the capital, we declare an age of waste. For as long as this flag remains remains under our control, an endless supply of rats, war machines, and explosives will spawn onto the map every turn, gradually spreading our influence like an incurable disease. With this massive buff to our faction, we can now begin our campaign against the humans. Presently, the Guard have established a series of Imperial bastions across the map. These high-value bunkers are propping up at least 30% of their entire economy. So that's where we're going to start. We go ahead and assemble 5 high-quality armies. 1 will remain in the capital to protect our flag. 3 will be dispersed across the map to defend our more distant territories. And finally, we're sending Glup to go on the offensive. Our first army finds a group of Adeptus Mechanicus hiding in the hills near our capital. Their army composition is almost 50% slaves, so I'm expecting our blimps to clean them up quickly. However, one of their units begins calling down meteors on us, which turns the tides in their favor, and we trade roughly evenly. The good news is that the AdMech is like the vestigial twin of their far more successful ally, so even a mid-scale skirmish like this was enough to take them out of the war for the next 20 turns. With that taken care of, we use Glup Shido to assault the first Imperial bastion. While this fortress was well defended, our army can only be described as blatantly unfair. I want you to appreciate this fight from the defender's point of view. The battle begins with 30 minutes of long-range cannons spraying acid onto you and all of your friends. If you're lucky enough to survive that, you will then witness your comrades being blown to pieces by high-powered rifles, just long enough for the acid cannons to finish reloading. Then it's back to the melting pot. While that's going on, you may notice teams of tunneling rats emerging underneath you before using their Bioshock Big Daddy drill to bore a basketball-sized hole through your abdomen, at which point you're going to need a miracle. So you turn to your Priestess of Light for reassurance, just in time to witness her get flattened as a 9,000-pound industrial drill drives over her head. You and the remaining defenders put up a good fight, but in that moment, you know it's all over. That was a pretty bad setback for the humans, but not nearly as bad as what's going on everywhere else. Because since declaring the Age of Waste, there are rats everywhere. They're spawning in the streets, they're spawning in the fields, and sometimes a rat carrying an atomic bomb will even spawn in the sky and fall directly onto a densely populated city. The casualty rate of these armies is very high, but they're slowly grinding down the human defenses, which is making it easier for our main armies to make progress. Also, a little update on that zombie apocalypse we've been ignoring. Yeah, it's getting pretty rough out there. The Fent zombies have basically turned the entire northwest portion of the map into Little Philadelphia. The only reason we continue to ignore it is because at the moment it's affecting the humans way more than it's affecting us. But we don't want Nurgle spreading any of those diseases on our part of the map, so I decided to put him in Naughty Boy timeout by having our mine layers go up and use 150 napalm landmines to trap him in his starting area. This was somewhat effective at quarantining both Nurgle and Khorne. However, their willingness to simply walk through active minefields was rather alarming. So I had to upgrade to just planting nuclear bombs in their front yard, at which point they became a lot more apprehensive about leaving their homes. Now we can get back to our campaign against the humans. By this point, we have entered a state of total war. Several mid-sized battles are breaking out in cities all over the map, and the Imperial Guard is not doing too bad. But we have been using our main siege army to relentlessly repossess several of their Imperial bastions. And if this score graph is anything to go by, it's starting to have an effect. While we were busy putting Nurgle on house arrest and stealing all of these fortresses, the humans did seize the opportunity to launch a series of counterattacks against our capital city. Their first army got within 3 tiles of it before I decided to send out the welcoming committee. Their second army followed shortly after. However, they had to trudge through a high-density minefield, which inflicted around 40% casualties. We decided to follow this up by attacking them with our defensive army, which was going pretty well until a series of freak accidents caused a chain reaction of exploding vehicles, which pretty much killed everyone and caused us to lose the fight. However, something about our willingness to spontaneously explode must have frightened the humans, because they took off running on the next turn. So in a roundabout way, this was an astounding military success.
Yeah.
By this point, Glup Shido has fought his way to the capital cities of both human factions. We waste no time attacking the Forge Temple of the Adeptus Mechanicus, but upon loading into the battle, I almost feel bad. We showed up with actual siege equipment, and they showed up with a guy on stilts and several people who are being dissolved into liquid fertilizer. Needless to say, that's a wrap for this faction. Onto the Imperial Guard. Their extermination was a bit more protracted, but eventually we cornered their last army in the port city of Trensibor, and so began the Guard's final stand. The siege began with us summoning 25 wild rats behind enemy lines. Half of them drowned on the spot, and the other half were vaporized by laser beams. But this distraction allowed our front line to close the distance and start chipping away at their gate. At this point, the enemy firepower is slaughtering 50 of us per turn. But once we get our blimps in range, we begin turning the tide, and eventually we wear them down into nothingness. Humanity has fallen to rat kind.
Disgusting.
Now, much like a convicted rapist receiving his new cellmate, we peer across the way and size up our next victim. Nurgle and Khorne are all that remain, and presently they're not really a big threat to us. Nurgle did start the zombie apocalypse, and for a while we had to resort to sending Gata Blimp death squads to cull the undead horde. But eventually I realized it was more convenient to use our resource harvesters to completely flatten the infected cities, which pretty much put an end to that. Now, simply put, the Chaos factions are nowhere near as strong as us. In fact, we lose more units every turn to shallow water drownings than they have in their entire military. So it wouldn't be difficult for us to go beat these guys into a coma. But where's the sport in that? I want to fight the Chaos gods at their very best, which is why we're going to do something highly inadvisable. While testing this mod, I found out that if you drill far enough underground, you may accidentally open a portal to hell. This plane of existence contains some of the most powerful demons in the game, which begs the question, who would win in a fight? Legions of demonic warriors forged in the fires of hell itself, or a couple of rats with prep time? Answering that question seems far more interesting than just curb stomping our neighbors to death. So the plan is, go to hell, defeat the strongest demons in a military dick measuring contest, and then once we know we've got the fattest hog in this place, we can finally finish the game. Now, contrary to popular belief, drilling a hole straight into hell is not something that should be done casually, because if these demons manage to infiltrate our world, the game is pretty much over. You need to trust me on this one, I'm speaking from experience. So around our tunnel, we assembled half a dozen armies, totaling over 3,000 units. Then we built
so from what Reggie was sitting there saying was, whatever down is in hell, the monsters and shit, I mean, they must be like fucking like the shit, you know? Like they probably like max fucking level.
Built some fortifications just to be safe. Following that, we sent Glup Shido and 2 other commanders through the breach, leaving behind around 1,000 soldiers to guard the entrance. It doesn't take long before the denizens of hell sally forth to welcome us. 30 bloodletters rush our front line, and I'm not trying to exaggerate, but we beat the ever-living shit out of them. Unfortunately, they did manage to take down 2 of our drills. However, after reviewing the remaining army, I think we'll be okay. From here, we can see the first demonic citadel, guarded by a bunch of flesh hounds and a highly dangerous Rendmaster.
Nothing.
Oh well, I guess that wasn't enough. I probably should have mentioned we spent the last 20 turns accumulating a nuclear stockpile to lubricate our invasion of hell. And with the first citadel now conquered, we're off to a good start. From here, we worked our way south, conquering castle after castle. Occasionally, we would get attacked by a demon prince, which in theory is one of the strongest units down here. But as it turns out, even demons have a limit to how many times they can get shot in the face, which means these big fellas are nothing more than glorified mailmen, delivering us some of the most powerful demonic relics in the entire game, and all we have to do is beat them to death. What a deal. I'm serious. We've killed so many of these guys that I've got like 24 copies of the Sword of Hell. In fact, I just started handing them out to literal field rats. Our steamrolling continued until we reached this lava biome, at which point we had to stop, because as it turns out, the average rat cannot survive being submerged in lava. Now, despite emasculating the demons of hell, I remain unsatisfied. I crave a real challenge. So I sat and I pondered, what happens if we drill even deeper than hell? Turns out you drill directly into the void. Huge mistake. This is an endless expanse of cosmic horror, where time stands still and the human mind slowly melts simply by perceiving the world around it. It is not a very nice place to be, but that didn't stop us from sending in our resource harvesters and terraforming the shit out of it. After some wandering around, we also came across a sacred fountain, which upon activation teleported us to heaven. Let me ask you a question. What do you think God looks like? Is he an old bearded man in the sky? Perhaps he's a sphere of perfect.
Create opportunity for yourself.
Maybe God's a
and
girl.
others. Earn an accredited degree
Right?
online
I mean,
at WGU.edu.
maybe, right? Maybe.
Hey, Daddy, when you gonna stop playing?
Big chicken.
Divine energy. Or maybe he's a 12-foot tall anthropomorphic chicken futanari with chiseled abs. Whatever you guessed, you were wrong. Except for the Futanari guy, he was actually pretty close. In Conquest of Elysium, this is God. He's one of the strongest units in the entire game, and he lives in the Divine Citadel all the way up here in heaven. Fellas, I think we finally got a worthy opponent. If we can kill God, at last, I will be satisfied, and we can call it a day. After briefly reviewing the defenses of God's castle, I can confidently say this army ain't gonna cut it. We'll be needing backup. However, getting to heaven is easier said than done. We only got here through pure RNG, since the landscape of the void changes every turn, and while we could conceivably do it again, it might just take all day. So instead, I hatched a plan which was so exceptionally stupid that I should probably qualify for government assistance. Right now, we're down here. Above us is the sky, and above that is heaven. Theoretically, we could use our heaven army to drill through the floor and connect heaven to the sky. Then our army on the ground could use a magic bean to connect Elysium to the clouds above.
That's so stupid.
That would link all three planes together and allow us to invade heaven and kill God. Here's where it gets tricky. We need our connection point to be on a cloud, because that's the only tile we can stand on in the sky. The problem is, we don't actually know where the clouds are, and everything else is just empty space, meaning that our tunneling teams are now engaged in a high-stakes guessing game. Every time they drill through the floor, they will either land safely on a cloud below, or plummet 10,000 feet to their death. And I'm gonna be honest, most of the time, it's the latter. I cannot imagine how utterly terrifying it must be to work on the drilling team. Not only did you have to tunnel through hell and spend weeks going insane in the void just to get to work, but now that you're here, you have to dig through heaven and white-knuckle your 35-ton boring machine vertically through the sky, praying that a cloud will stop your descent before the ground does, all in service of fulfilling your dickhead boss's fantasy of beating up God. What a fucking life. Needless to say, we lost a lot of good rats in this process, but eventually we did manage to connect with a suitable cloud. All that's left now is for our ground team to go underneath the cloud and plant this bean, which will grow into a magic beanstalk and link us to the sky above. Perfect. Yet another classic Reggie plan slowly coming to fruition. Except when we got our army in position, the option to plant the seed was grayed out. It's not working. I tried a few different positions, still no luck. That's when I read the fine print and realized the seed has to be planted on grassy terrain. Alright, calm down. Let's just zoom out a bit and find the nearest piece of grass.
Nowhere.
Well, shit. With grass currently being extinct, the plan is off. 17 brave rats have plummeted to their death to accomplish absolutely nothing. Actually, that's not
he fucked up everything. Cause remember he was sitting there demolishing the freaking the trees and everything. So he fucked up his whole plan.
Entirely true. They did open a portal to heaven, which the angels of heaven are now using to launch a counterinsurgency into Elysium. Every turn, they're going to our cities, slaughtering half the inhabitants, and using religious magic to convert the other half onto their team. They've already taken several of our most defended fortresses, and they're only gaining momentum. So if we don't kill God soon, it's all going to be over. With our main plan ruined, we were left with no other option than to prepare an army, send it into the void, and pray that through sheer luck, we would get teleported near the portal to heaven. I was prepared for this to be an agonizing process that took at least 2 hours, but we actually got it done in like 15 minutes. God damn. We now have a high-level siege army in heaven. At first, my plan was to nuke God, because I thought that video title would go very hard. However, it turns out God has 100% nuke resistance, which made me feel pretty stupid for smuggling 9 atomic bombs all the way up here. But that's alright, because we've always got our backup plan. 50 anti-material rifles straight to the dome. If God physically exists, we're gonna blow his goddamn head off. So with confidence, we approach the Divine Castle and launch our assault. Using their 44 tile range, our snipers begin tearing apart the enemy defenses. The first volley kills about a dozen angels, but unfortunately we failed to eliminate this Seraph, and he proceeds to use a map-wide Hellfire ability to cremate 60% of our units. Luckily, that still left us with enough to gun down the approaching angels and finish him off. Their backline casters try to overwhelm us by spam summoning fire elementals, but our rate of fire is still too much, and slowly we start wearing them down until eventually God himself begins slithering toward us. We mag dump the hell out of him, but he still gets close enough to hit one of our rats for 634 damage. My brother in Christ, they only have 3 health. Before he was able to brutalize anyone else, we finally put him down with a rail cannon to the face, resulting in our victory. Let it be known that God is dead, and Glup Shido killed him. The only thing left to do was use our resource harvester to completely flatten the Divine Citadel, and then replace it with a Nike sweatshop. So now, when you inevitably die in a horrific industrial accident back on Elysium, the very first thing you can do once getting into heaven is get back to work. Even in death, you will serve the shareholders. Well, there you have it. God is dead, and Elysium has been transformed into an endless wasteland populated by roaming gangs of rats looking to harvest you for your biomass. That's about as good as things are going to get, so let's finish off Korn and Nurgle. Quickly assembling our army outside their citadels, we launched our final attack. I'd like to say our enemies put up a good fight, but in reality, this was essentially a form of digital euthanasia, finally freeing them from the suffering that has been their existence. Upon getting the victory screen, the first thing I did was check the score graph to see how we measured up against the other factions. I guess you could say it was pretty close. Well, that does it for this video. We've installed Ratkind as the dominant species on the planet and declared productivity to be the new world religion. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
I swear, them damn rats, you know, dumb fucking rats. Dumb fucking rats. You know, this dumb fucking rats. But anywho, thank you all for coming. I hope you all enjoy. This is a nice little, nice little video of Reggie killing a little damn little rats. But yeah, I'm gonna try and do the conspiracy video later today. Yeah, probably later. But tell me what you tell me what you all think for visual novels and all that stuff. Who's your favorite girl? Cause I'm trying to do a I'm gonna try and do still my little image and all that stuff. I'm a person said on BitChute to use the meme use a meme, so I'm gonna try and get it. I'm gonna try and do it well. So I might just make them. I might just see if I can like do it myself or whatever. So that's gonna be something. I'm gonna see if I can do it like that. But anyway, it might take a while. Might take a good while, but you know, I'll probably do it. But anyway, thank you all for coming, and I'll see you next time.